All right, we are now joined here in studio by Witold Dzielski. You are Poland's ambassador to Canada. Thank you very much for speaking with us today. I want to start with what we've seen so far. Literally a red carpet rollout on American soil. The president clapped as Vladimir Putin walked toward him on that red carpet. They got into the president's car together and to travel to the summit site. I'm curious, what kind of message does that send to NATO in this moment?
It's a very interesting day that we're having right now. It's a meeting between two leaders, one representing the democratic world, the biggest, the most powerful country in the world, and the most powerful country within NATO structure, and the biggest in terms of territory country, which is a dictatorship and autocracy, a country and its leader that is allowing and having his forces mass murder other nations, other people, and is allowing his own people to die in thousands in a war which is illegal, brutal, and filled with hate. But the show that you've described, I think it's a way to open the dialogue by Mr. Trump with President Trump with Mr. Putin, and it's obvious that President Trump wants to try to make Putin welcome for those conversations, and there is a reason for it, because I believe that President Trump genuinely wants to have people stop killing each other on a very basic on this very basic level. So those theatrics and that show is happening for a reason. In that sense, my hope is that it brings real tangible results.
Do you have expectations, or do you have hope in this moment that perhaps there could be progress towards some sort of resolution, a peaceful resolution?
It's listening to Polish politicians, I would say that they are very cautious in that kind of belief. They are rather, and the Polish messaging is, concentrated on a couple of points, which is very clear also on the broadly European Union level. Mm-hmm. So one thing is that Ukrainians have to be included in any kind of decision-making process, because it's about them. They are being murdered by Putin. And that also, Europe has to play a role in that process, and also that the ceasefire is the precondition for any further conversations, and the notions of land swaps, damaging the notion of sovereignty, breaking international law. These are the ideas that are outside of Polish interest.
Now, as Donald Trump was headed toward this summit, he seemed to sort of at least shift his positioning around land swaps. So earlier this week, we heard him, and previous weeks, we heard him say, listen, if there's going to be a peace deal, there's going to have to be some land swapping. And he sort of suggested that both countries, both Russia and Ukraine, were just going to have to sort of deal with it, which certainly sent off deep alarm bells in Ukraine as well as with NATO allies. On his plane ride out here, he sort of seemed to change that a little bit. He's told reporters that, it's going to have to be up to Ukraine, and that he's not actually here to negotiate on behalf of Ukraine. What does that say to you about what is at stake in this moment? And if Donald Trump is shifting his position without much sort of, background information, or there's no reason why he's shifting it, it's just shifting it, does that concern you about what could be decided at this meeting?
I think there will be many things that we will not know about the conversation, especially the part which will take place between the two gentlemen. Gentlemen, that's the wrong word. between the two leaders only. But many topics are on the table, and I think they will have. Both of them are decision makers. They're powerful politicians. So I think they will be discussing everything. But there is a certain structure that in the end they will have to operate within. President Trump had a good conversation with some of the European leaders, including Polish leaders. With both Polish President Karol Nawrocki and the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk were engaged in, either directly or indirectly. And the message in terms of land swaps was very strong from the European partners. President Trump does not have to take that into consideration, but at the same time he realizes that this European element of the puzzle is and will continue to be very important. And he does take into consideration a messaging coming from his close allies, such as Poland, for example. So I think there will be a number of topics that they will be discussing, but in the end they will have to fall in somehow into the structure that we are operating in. It's they can stretch the structure and work with in such a manner, but still.
So this is such a significant meeting. This is such a significant event. I'm wondering, given that Poland borders Ukraine, given you are a NATO member, a very large NATO member, what are the conversations happening like behind the scenes right now when it comes to what people are thinking about what they've seen from the NATO perspective?
The conversations which are taking place, probably a better person to talk about behind the scenes conversations would be an expert, not a diplomat necessarily.
Fair enough.
Because I would be happy to share some of the thoughts, but not necessarily on the record.
Not at the table. Fair enough. So, there's no way we're going to be able to predict what comes out of this meeting. That is one of the elements that puts the stakes so high here. In this moment, are NATO partners, are NATO members preparing for perhaps the situation on the ground to get worse? If this meeting doesn't lead to any sort of change in behavior from Russia, if they continue on with the assault on Ukraine, what does NATO have to do next?
That's a good question, and there are many answers to that question. Poland is very much on the side of working with Russia. On the side of thinking about peace through strength. Our history with Russia is quite horrid, and we've been oppressed, and I'm just like Ukrainians and other nations in our region. We've been oppressed, mass murdered, slaughtered, occupied by Russian. We fought them a number of times. A number of times we've been victorious. Today we're celebrating a Polish national holiday, which is related to the victory of the Battle of Warsaw in 1920, that we've saved Europe against the Bolshevik Soviet-Russian invasion back in the day. So we know, it's not that we believe, we know very well from our history that a conversation with Russia has to be based in strength. Russians do not respect documents, Russians do not respect agreements. And it's more difficult always for a democracy to work and to come to an agreement with Russia in that kind of context. So I think this notion of peace through strength should be recognized in conversations with the Russians.
All right, we will leave the conversation there. Ambassador, thank you very much for your time today.